The rain poured down in heavy sheets, the kind of storm that makes people rush for shelter and shut their doors tightly against the night. But in the middle of the darkened street, under a flickering street lamp, a young woman stood trembling. With her violin, her clothes were soaked, her hair clung to her face, and her hands shook as she lifted the bow. Still, she played. Each note cut through the roar of the storm like a fragile thread of hope, carrying with it her pain, her struggle, and the kind of honesty only music can hold. People hurried past, some pausing for a moment before disappearing, again into the safety of their warm cars or dry umbrellas. But she stayed, her eyes glistening with tears, refusing to let the storm silence her. This wasn't just about music, it was about survival. Her violin was more than an instrument. It was her last chance, the only way she knew how to keep going. In a world that had given her little and taken too much, what she didn't know was that someone was watching. A sleek black car had stopped just a few feet away, its windows tinted, its presence quiet but commanding. Inside sat a man whose face was known across magazines and business. Headlines: a billionaire whose empire stretched across industries. He was used to power, wealth, and privilege. But as he watched her fragile figure pouring her soul into the storm, something inside him stirred. Why was she out there alone, playing in the rain? What story was hidden behind the trembling notes that refused to stop, even when her tears mixed with the water dripping from her face? The driver leaned forward, asking softly if they should leave. But the billionaire lifted his hand, his eyes locked on her. At that moment, a decision was forming in his mind, one that would change not only her life, but also his dot. And just when she thought no one was listening, something happened that would shock everyone who witnessed it. The billionaire stepped out of the car, the storm soaking his tailored suit within seconds, but he didn't seem to care. The girl barely noticed him at first. She was too focused on her music, too lost in the rhythm that kept her heart steady. Each stroke of the bow was both a cry and a prayer. When she finally glanced up, her eyes widened. She recognized his face instantly. Everyone did. Yet she kept playing, as if afraid that stopping would make her disappear. Her story was not one the world knew. She had once dreamed of playing on great stages, of sharing her music with people who would truly listen. But life had not been kind. Her family had struggled, and one loss after another had pushed her further into the shadows. The violin was all she had left of her late father, who had taught her to play when she was just a child. Every note she played carried his memory, and that night in the storm, it was almost as if she were calling out to him. The billionaire stood still, watching the raw honesty in front of him. For years, he had surrounded himself with polished performances, curated events, and people who played their roles perfectly. But here was something real, something unpolished and unguarded. He felt a weight in his chest he couldn't explain. Yet, the girl did not see him as a savior. She saw him as another stranger in a world that had often ignored her pain. She lowered her gaze, her bow trembling as though the strength in her arms was fading. Still, she played on, defying the storm and the silence that threatened to swallow her. The billionaire took a step closer, his expression unreadable. And just before he spoke, the crowd that had been ignoring her suddenly turned their eyes toward them both, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The storm showed no sign of easing, and yet the girl's violin kept echoing. Against the wet pavement, the billionaire stood there, caught between the life he knew and the moment unfolding in front of him. He was a man who made decisions worth millions in minutes, but this felt different. The conflict wasn't just about what he should do for her. It was about the question pressing against his own guarded heart. Why did this girl's pain matter to him in a way nothing else had for years? The girl, unaware of his inner battle, kept her eyes low. She wasn't playing for him, or for the small crowd gathering now. She was playing against the silence that always seemed to swallow her life. The audience whispered, wondering who she is. Was why a billionaire was watching so intently, and if this was some kind of hidden performance. But for her, every note was a confession of debts unpaid, of dreams unfulfilled, of nights spent wondering if she had already lost everything that mattered. Meanwhile, the billionaire's mind raced through memories he rarely let surface. He remembered his own childhood, the loneliness hidden behind grand walls, the quiet longing for something real. He saw himself in her, though their worlds couldn't have been more different. That recognition unsettled him. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. The driver shifted uneasily, glancing at the restless crowd. Some took out phones, recording the strange scene of a drenched violinist and the man whose face had been on countless financial covers. To them, it looked like a story about charity or spectacle. But for the girl, it was about survival. For the billionaire, it was something he couldn't yet name. The storm grew louder, and just as her bow slipped for a moment, the billionaire finally stepped forward. But what he was about to send, the choices he would soon make, would leave everyone in shock. And nothing after this night would ever be the same. The girl's bow trembled in her hand. Her fingers numb from the cold, yet the music refused to stop. Every note rose higher against the thunder, clashing with the storm as though the violin itself was fighting back against the night. The billionaire was only a few steps away now, close enough to see the tears blending with the rain. On her face, the crowd leaned forward, whispering, their curiosity feeding the tension. What was he going to do? Why was he so captivated by this one fragile figure in the storm? The billionaire's chest tightened as he watched her fight to keep playing. He had seen people break under pressure, competitors fall, even partners betray him, but what he saw in her was different. This was not a performance for glory or famite, was desperation. It was survival wrapped in melody. And the weight of that raw truth pressed on him harder than any deal he had ever signed. His instincts told him to act, but another voice inside held him back, whispering that maybe she didn't need saving. Maybe she needed to be heard. The girl could feel his presence now, heavy and undeniable. She wanted to turn away, to hide her shaking hands and aching heart, but something inside pushed her to keep playing louder, almost as if daring him to truly listen. Her father's memory echoed in her mind. Play as if it's your last chance, because sometimes it will be. The storm roared, lightning split the sky, and the murmurs of the onlookers grew restless. Phones continued recording, their screens glowing through the rain, capturing the strange, charged moment. The billionaire's hand twitched at his side, torn between stepping in and letting her finish her battle alone. And then, just as the music swelled into its most haunting cry, he took another step forward. The air grew tense, every eye fixed on them, as if the entire city was holding its breath for what would happen next. The billionaire's next step forward sent a ripple through the crowd. But before he could speak, a sharp voice cut through the storm. From the far side of the street, a man stumbled into the glow of the streetlight, drenched and angry. His eyes locked on the girl, and she froze mid-note, her bow halting in mid-air. The sound that had carried her through the storm died instantly, leaving only the roar of thunder and the gasps of onlookers. The stranger shouted her name, his tone filled with bitterness. The crowd turned, murmuring louder now, unsure if this was part of the scene or something far more personal. The billionaire's eyes narrowed, studying the newcomer. The girl's shoulders tensed, her whole body trembling in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. The man accused her of running, of playing the violin when she owed debts she could never pay. His words struck like blows, each one revealing pieces of a struggle she had tried to keep hidden. Whispers spread quickly. This wasn't just a story of a violinist in the rain anymore. It was about survival, about shadows from her past that refused to let her go. The billionaire clenched, his jaw, feeling the tension, snap tighter around them all. The girl looked torn between dropping her violin and defending herself with the only voice she had left, her music. But before she could lift the bow again, the man reached forward as if to take the instrument from her hands. The crowd gasped, some raising their phones higher, others stepping back as if sensing something dangerous was about to happen. The billionaire stepped between them, his presence commanding, his eyes sharp. Yet the girl's face revealed the true conflict, fear, not just of losing her violin, but of losing the only piece of her father she had left. The storm raged louder, the streetlight flickered, and the fragile line between chaos and control threatened to break. And in that charged moment, with the girl caught between her past and an uncertain future, the billionaire was forced to make a choice that would shock everyone watching. The stranger's hand was inches from the violin when the billionaire's voice rang out, firm and commanding. The crowd fell silent as he stepped fully between the girl and the man, his eyes locked in a stare that left no room for argument. For years, the billionaire had negotiated with world leaders and rivals who held fortunes in their hands. But in that storm, the only battle